Hi there. It is springtime and the growing season is just around the corner. So I thought I would just do a little video showing where Oxbow Farm is at right at the moment. Here we are in the greenhouse, and the greenhouse has a lot of seedlings in it. It's also total chaos, and we're almost at a transition point. You can see this is the central bench, and I don't know if I've ever talked about this bench. It is a rocket mass heater that I'm using as a heated bench for germinating and growing seedlings. And in the earliest part of the season, in February, I just use this bench, and so I have a fire going in the firebox on that end under the barrel, and this whole bench warms up, and I start mostly speedling trays of greens. And we've already planted out, I don't even know how many batches of seedlings out in the high tunnel, which I'll show you in a second. And then this is more greens going. We got some second succession of Senposai, Pac Choi, some lettuce, more lettuce. That is, I believe, mustard greens. This is more lettuce. This is more lettuce. That is Mizuna and some Chinese cabbage. And then we have some fennel, I think, underneath there. And then some more greens underneath these trays. And then one thing I do is I do start some of my earliest warm season seedlings inside on some germination mats, and then I tend to bring them out here. And I start so these are eggplants. This is shishito peppers, and this was a variety of seed that was totally dead. That was a red pepper, I believe, red sweet pepper. And then we have tomatoes. That is pretty much the entire year's planting of tomatoes. That will fill 4 beds of the big house. So those are sun golds and slicers and a couple of experimental varieties there. So yeah, I really like starting my peppers and tomatoes and stuff on these mini blocks. They're really the only soil blocks that I actually use. I tried the bigger soil blocks and they weren't really my thing. But I do like germinating my seeds, some of my seeds on these mini blocks. The only downside to it is you kind of have, like, that's all the tomatoes I'm planning on growing this year. And so basically all my chickens are in one basket. All my eggs are in one basket, whatever the expression is. So that's a little nerve-wracking, and I am carrying them back and forth to the house. So if I were to trip on a cat or something like that and send all the seedlings flying, that would be a pretty big disaster. So I really do want to build like a permanent germination chamber in the greenhouse here, or ideally in the nice bigger greenhouse that I'm hoping to build soon. Just so that, I'm not risking the seedlings so much in this like brief early period. So these are almost to the point where I'm going to pot them up into some 50 cell plug sheets, and then those are going to go on this bench, which would put most of the greens over here on this bench, which is hanging up right now. And just avert your eyes to the mess because I didn't clean up the greenhouse. You can see all the onions from when the onions were curing in here. I really need to clean up in here. So yeah, what else we have? So this is stuff that doesn't not need heat. We got spinach, some kale, beets. So these trays are still occasionally getting frozen, depending on how cold at night it gets. But none of this stuff cares, And then I think that's another tray of beets and spinach. And then we got parsley. For parsley, this is not bad germination. I'm actually very happy with the state of these trays. We've got flat parsley and curly parsley here. It's parsley and a weed. Parsley is kind of a pain in the neck to germinate, and I actually find personally that it actually germinates better if you let the trays freeze a bunch of times. It seems to spark germination. Then we got some cacti, and then a mess. I was trying some aquaponics-y stuff last year. So this is some prickly pear, Opuntia. I'm messing around with growing those for nopales, but these are all, most of these are Opuntia humifusa, which is the eastern prickly pear, and this guy is Opuntia macrorhiza, which is a midwestern prickly pear. And these are all very hardy, but they're very spiny. And I have some other Opuntias that I've got rooting in the house that I have that are the spineless, but they're all from like Mexico and stuff, and I don't think they would be hardy in the winter here. So I'm gonna experiment a little bit maybe with crossing them. I didn't talk about these guys. This is my TPS seedlings, and these are right now sitting on top of the trays because I just seeded these trays underneath, and so I'm bringing these out and just setting them on top. I think I've got 10 different varieties of TPS growing here. So once again, TPS Adventures. This stuff is from William Whitson. Magic Dragons. I won't go into any of the individual ones. Oh, one other thing I forgot. I got these 6 little plants of Lady Murasaki Komatsuna, which I harvested out of the first planting I did of the Lady Murasaki. So I'm going to try and grow these out for seed. You can see my whole video on Lady Murasaki. I tried it last year and really liked it, so I'm going to try and get my own batch of seed. So hopefully these guys will hook in, and I have every expectation that they will. And then I'll plant these out pretty soon for a seed crop. So you can see here we still have a little bit of snow in the shady spots, and the grass isn't really growing, but it's supposed to warm up a little bit in the next couple of weeks, and so I think it's time to like really consider it spring finally. It's been a little bit of a cool season this winter and spring. So here's the rhubarb. You can see they're just starting to push a little bit. So that's kind of this place we're at right now. And I don't have any of the rhubarb covered this year. Like in a previous video I had about forcing early rhubarb, because we're actually gonna dig this and divide it and plant it out over by the big high tunnel in very soon. So we're not gonna actually have much rhubarb to sell or to eat this year because we're moving it to expand the planting. And here we are in the big house, where pretty much everything we have in the ground is in here right now. That's not a perennial. So we have 2 beds of Senposai in the center, and that's just starting to take off here. Last year it was much further along, but it's been a much colder, cloudier spring so far. Spring and late winter. So we got 2 beds of Senposai, and then that bed is Mizuna and Tatsoi. And honestly, the Mizuna is the thing that looks the worst right now. And I'm not sure why that is, but I am not worried about it. Mizuna is pretty tough. I think it will be just fine. And then we've got a bed of lettuce over there on the north. And then this bed is mostly Pac Choi with a little bit of extra Senposai. And then that far south bed is the saddest looking bed, and it's Russian kale and some Tatsoi, which was honestly a little bit too small. And there's a little bit of Lady Murasaki Komatsuna on that far north edge there. I didn't have a lot of it, and honestly, the tray that had the Lady Murasaki and that small Tatsoi in the south bed, the seedlings were a little small to be transplanting, but I just wanted some seedlings to fill this house and get everything going. So those seedlings were a little on the small side to be transplanted, and they suffered a little bit as a consequence. But everything is growing in here really well, including the weeds. Yeah, this is looking promising for getting to market by probably the second market in April. Usually we're able to get there at the very first market in April, but this spring stuff is just moving a little bit slower. So yeah, but I'm really excited about the crops we have in the ground, and I need to get on the stick and get the greenhouse cleaned out to be ready for a whole lot more seedlings, because I got to start onions. Got to pot up the tomatoes and the peppers. We got more peppers to in the mini blocks in the house still, and the potatoes. So yeah, everything's coming along. So that's where we're at so far. Hope this was interesting, and thank you very much for watching.